In some places, the paradigm for teaching is that the teacher talks or explains, and then the students practice or ask questions. And yet, research shows that students learn when they're engaged, and that maximum engagement does not happen while the teacher is talking. So, how can BLC structure lessons or activities, even the way that we introduce new materials, such that students are doing most of the talking?
I remind teachers that students learn language by using it. And if I'm using the language, the students aren't using it. So how do we encourage students to use the language? So I will usually present, or I will send a video to pre-teach so that they hear the vocabulary that we're going to go over in the next class. And then we immediately start either a little bit of listen, repeat. This is at the intro level, a little bit of listen, repeat. And then we get into round robins like Randy was talking about. I say the red line, you say the blue line, then you say the red line, and so says the blue line.
In a dialogue, you're talking about.
In a dialogue. Yeah. But to have all of the students read both roles. And when we start each unit, I'll show the picture from the unit or a related picture and say, what do you see? So I haven't presented any vocabulary necessarily, but what do you see? And so anyone that knows some of the words can bring it up. Some of them will bring up words that aren't in our vocabulary, but it's activating their knowledge.
I just have to jump in there because I think that's very, very key. I will never present new information without first asking students, what do you, if it's vocabulary, what do you see? And if it's a grammatical concept at level 1 or a higher level than any level, I will give them examples and ask them why. You see, this is different than that. Why? Or have blanks when I'm presenting material. So I'm never giving them all of the information. I give, you receive, but I'm always trying to co-construct the new knowledge with them.
The first 20 minutes of every class is a conversation question. And so they have to ask their neighbor sort of, and then repeat back what they say. So asking each other questions and then reporting back. I also keep have index cards with each student's name on it. And I just go, okay, Jorge, number 3, Maria, number 4. So everybody gets a chance to talk. So it really helps the people that talk too much or that answer every question, and also the shy student in the corner, that kind of helps.
It was actually students who are like, please use index cards and call on us, because the advanced students felt so much pressure to answer, and then the lower students would be too shy to answer. So they are my best friend. I use them all the time. In the advanced, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, this is something in the research that I did with my colleague last fall about students taking classes both online and in person. Students said, even the very shy students said, we want you to call on us. We want even talking time. It's really hard when you call on us, the shy student said, but we want that. We need that. We are here to learn English. We need to practice.
They're usually given an assignment, find out what he had for breakfast, and then they have to come back and say, he had this for breakfast, and then we do it.
So I'll throw them in a breakout room with an easy question like, what's something positive that happened to you today? Bonding kind of questions, friendship making questions. That's the first 10 minutes of every class I do. And then other times we'll have more intense discussion questions, more formal ones that they will do in breakout rooms. And then my level 4 people will have an assistant with them to help them understand the question, kind of thing. So,
and in level 1, I don't put students into breakout rooms without a teacher until like January. I do have assistants, so I'll put higher level 1 students in breakout rooms sometimes by themselves if they're have different first languages, and have an assistant in with the lower level students. But then I will give them very specific jobs to do in the breakout rooms, like you said, you guys all said.
So an intro can't do that. No. An intro, there has to be a facilitator. So we do breakout rooms with assistants. Yeah.
Other ideas for structuring activities. So let's say you're introducing new material. We talked about eliciting the information from students. How do you do that? What kinds of activities how do you structure activities so that you're not sitting there explaining for 5 minutes or for 3 minutes even?
So I rely heavily on questions. My class is probably 80% question based. I never go say the word and then say what it means. Never. I'm always like, I'll say the word so they can hear it pronounced correctly. And then like, who knows what this word means? Does anybody know what this means? And I always try to have the students answer first, and then I just fill in the gaps.
Maybe even any level is have students answer one another's questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really good. And the other thing about what does this mean, a lower level, not much lower level adaptation for that can be often it's hard to define what something means, but you can ask to use it in a sentence. Who can make a sentence with this word?
And we do a lot of picture matching. If I show 4 pictures numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, which one is blank? Which one is blank? Or is number 3 this or
I
that?
like to, if there's new material, I like to send it home with them before we learn about it in class, because they can have an opportunity to look at it and puzzle it over in their quiet of their living room before they have to be on, on camera.
Yeah, I find pre-teaching is wonderful because it really incents them to do the work. They know that if they look at that, then class is going to be easier.
Yeah. They're not embarrassed by not
They're not
knowing.
embarrassed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other thing is from at least November, we start practicing at the beginning of every class. I don't know. Can you repeat that slower, please?
Right.
And then at the advanced level, I do kind of the same thing where I'm like, if you don't know the answer, you can ask for help
Yeah.
from the other students. That is not cheating.
Yeah.
The other thing that I do a lot to avoid my voice being so prominent in class is I write. So if we're looking at a picture, for example, and they have a question about it, or we're trying to form sentences about it, or we're trying to talk about it, and there's something that they're saying that is what we're learning immediately and they don't get it correct, or they're hesitating, instead of using my voice, I will write it and I'll put a blank
Yeah.
where the missing information is. And while I'm writing, I will sometimes stop and say, how do you spell that? And let them tell me. So again, it's co-constructing the knowledge with them. Why is this started and that one is, learned and not learned? We talk about that and see if they can find the patterns rather than me explaining it. Because if they can find the patterns, they are way more likely to remember it.
A lot of those games that we have access to through subscriptions, they're really fun and the students love it and they get into it. And when they have fun, then they speak more. And I like to do that in the end of it because they leave on a really positive note.
And they are a great way of reviewing prior vocabulary and grammar from prior units. It is a fantastic way to do review.